In 1878, the Posse Comitatus, which bars federal troops from participating in civilian law enforcement, was enacted. In 1916, General Blackjack Pershing and his U.S. military force of 12,000 soldiers crossed the Mexican border in pursuit of Pancho Villa, but was recalled 9 months later due to World War I. My, how things have changed. Now migrants from many countries are invading the U.S. on its southern border en masse. Hi folks, and welcome back to the Storm and Cellar. Well, at the request of the Department of Homeland Security, 1,500 U.S. troops were sent to the U.S.-Mexico border. Why? Because Title 42, which was put in place by President Trump due to COVID restrictions, allowed border agents to turn away migrants at the border back to Mexico. Now, Title 42, which expired at midnight on May 11th, and the Border Patrol is expecting to process in excess of 58,000 plus, or a minimum of 13,000 migrants per day. Let's not forget, that's on top of the already 600,000 who have crossed the border and released under the Biden administration. Naturally, when President Trump wanted to send troops to assist at the border, the Democrats and the mainstream media's heads exploded. Now the shoe's on the other foot. However, regardless of who did what, though, is it legal under Posse Comitatus to send federal troops to the border? The short answer is yes. The long answer is they can only be used as support personnel. Years ago, when I was working in U.S. air defense under NORAD, we had launched fighter aircraft under U.S. federal control to intercept known airborne drug traffickers, but we could only report or surveil the drug trafficker and never had authorization to shoot them down. Now, President Biden sent these troops to the border strictly for a support role, and in my opinion, it's only to expedite processing and get the migrants across the border and into the United States as quickly as possible. Now, according to the U.S. Border Patrol, once they cross into the U.S., taken to a processing area to get names, fingerprints, and photos, they're then turned over to NGOs, or non-governmental organizations, who loads them onto buses and taken all over the country, where they'll be dropped off awaiting a court date. Afterwards, the NGOs are reimbursed by the government. Now, talk about a political scam on the U.S. taxpayers. So what about the National Guard troops? Can they be deployed to the border under the direction and control of the state governor? Well, you just betcha. In fact, Governor Abbott deployed specially trained members of the National Guard called the Texas Tactical Border Force all along the Texas-Mexico border. Their job is to patrol what Governor Abbott called hot spots along the Texas border, and where they'll intercept, repel, and turn migrants back to Mexico, which are intercepted in either the air, maritime, or on the border itself. By the way, a good and longtime friend of mine and a Texas Air National Guard general is currently leading the deployed task force headquarters down there on the border. And at some point, I can't wait to hear his assessment of how effective their operation was. Governor Abbott's really serious about doing what the federal government refuses to do. He's currently seeking legislation that would make it a felony to enter Texas illegally from Mexico and would mandate a 10-year prison sentence for human smugglers. They'll also be taking into consideration the development of a border enforcement unit. It's really a shame that Texas has to do what the federal government refuses to do, and that's to protect our borders and our citizens from the influx of migrants, which will overwhelm the system, release criminals into U.S. society, and increase the drug and human smuggling flow, not to mention foreign agents such as China who are slipping through the cracks down there. In fact, the U.S. Border Patrol is so seriously overwhelmed with in-processing, they have little time to go look for the cartels. I think we have to ask ourselves why the Biden administration is bringing hundreds of thousands of illegal migrants into the U.S. Well, it's simple. They need a future underclass to ultimately vote and keep the Democrats in power. Now, the U.S. already has a system under Title 8 which governs illegal entry into the country, but Biden has circumvented U.S. law strictly for political purposes. Not to worry, though, the judges will make a lawful determination for each case. Not so fast there, Sparky. Imagine this. There are just 350 immigration judges across the country who can hear the migrants' cases. That's 166 cases per judge a year, and hardly anyone knows where the migrants are or whether they will even show up for their trial date. That's on top of the 600,000 that I mentioned earlier. A memo was released yesterday that the migrants are just to be released without processing and asked to schedule their own date. It's just not going to happen, folks. And of course, if the feds were any less serious about the Mexican cartels controlling drug and human smuggling into the U.S., they recently announced ahead of time where and when they would be coming for them. Nothing like DHS announcing their war plan ahead of time and alerting cartel members so they can go underground and hide.
What's the matter?
My orders came through. My squadron ships out tomorrow. We're bombing the storage depots at Daiquiri at 1800 hours. We're coming in from the north, below their radar.
When will you be back?
I can't tell you that. It's classified.
Of course, while Biden is pushing they're coming as a result of fear from oppression, Secretary Mayorkas just said, and I quote, "The U.S. needs these folks as labor force, and so they can send money home." Apparently, the crazies are running the asylum, and we're in a broken arrow situation, folks. Okay, that's it. Hope you all found this interesting and informative. If so, click the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts by leaving them below. So until next time, make sure your takeoff and landings equal.